You don't want anyone to hear that live. So welcome to Hacking Business Technology, the Messy Office Edition. We've got Mark Kawasaki and myself, Mr. Matt Barron. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, hello. How you doing, Matt?
Excellent. So I was asking you before the podcast, and then I realized that I shouldn't be asking it off air. I should ask it on air. What are you reading these days? What are you paying attention to?
I'm still not back on Twitter much. I mean, I check in every now and then. That's just me personally. I don't know if that's a larger trend or not, but
can you summarize your reasons for doing so?
I don't know. I mean, to me, there was a tone problem, I think, just and I've heard other people complain about the same thing, but too many statements, not enough questions. Yeah.
Huh.
But, I mean, I'm certainly getting enough content other places. I mean, for news lately, I've been really enjoying Vox. I don't know if you know about Vox, but Vox is a new online news channel that kind of specializes in helping people understand the news without being elementary or demeaning. They give summaries of stories so that if you haven't followed it from the beginning, you can easily come to where the current event is today. So I've really enjoyed that, and it seems to be a little more contemporary in their approach. I really like that, so that's been nice.
Event-based news aggregation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard of it through Twitter.
Of course.
Let's see. What was there was one that I actually picked through the whole thing on. It was one of the data exploits that's happened recently, I guess. So you're not paying attention to Twitter. You're liking Vox. Anything else? Anything else strike your fancy recently?
I mean, I'm still following the usual suspects and poking around. I've kind of fallen off the radar on ITSM stuff for the most part. I'm not reading many blogs there. I don't know. Are you?
What? Yeah. I mean, the usual stuff.
Yeah,
the usual suspects. I find myself following a lot of people in the agile space.
Yeah.
And there are some really specific niches that I find very interesting. In the DevOps space, we hear a lot of dev and not much ops. So I find the ops conversations to be very unique.
Yeah.
And way more technical than ever before. And with a lot more variety of platform.
Yeah.
Which is sort of indicative of a trend, of course. But I think like the ability to learn and manage multiple platforms is becoming an operational, that's your talent. Farah, welcome!
Hey, sorry.
Hello. So I've been focusing on innovation still and business creativity and that sort of thing a lot. So I think that's kind of taken a lot of my focus. But it's been interesting. I mean, one of the people I used to love, reading their stuff was Simon Morris, and his blog on Scrum and Agile and that sort of a thing. And it's been interesting to watch his kind of personal development. And I felt something similar myself. I mean, so he's very engaged in community-based things in London, and even activism and protests in different, mostly economic concerns and causes, and so that's been really. I really want to reach out to him and just try to understand his journey, from something much more business related to something much more community and social related. I don't know. I just feel like I'm kind of on the same journey, trying to figure out what's important.
It'd be a beautiful, enabling conversation. Record it. Have him on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
I have no doubt he'd happily join.
Yeah.
No, I like Tarpaul and Simon on Twitter. lots of good, relevant content. It's funny to see the same things happening everywhere, but also tragic. I was waxing poetical to a coworker that I wasn't terribly proud to be an American recently. You know, and so there's these really, you know, they come out of the woodwork. People have stories about human rights and oppression that they want to share, and so she sends me this YouTube video about how slavery, bonded slavery, is legal in Pakistan, and it's kind of everywhere. And it's a result of agriculture being a lot easier to do by machine, and so people get forced out of that labor and into a new one.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I think it's super important to understand how connected business is to social value and social concerns. I mean, you can't escape it anymore. And even the hacking that's going on is very much related to how those intersect. And so, I don't know, I feel like that's a lot of why my focus has shifted, and perhaps others. I mean, even the Ashley Madison stuff is very much tied to social concerns.
Yeah, the final numbers are in. 35 million dudes, about 1,500 women, so 1,500 women on the service. Pretty shocking. And
5 million fake women accounts.
And it's depressing. I mean, it's really depressing to look at something like that and look at... there's so many different angles, and the fact that we're even like talking about it is also a problem. Someone tried to dox the person who originally tweeted about the Ashley Madison hack about 24 hours before any news services really picked it up. And they're claiming that that's not the actual person, it's the security researcher that found this person, but they got it wrong and doxed the wrong person. And, you know, chasing that stuff really isn't that important. I think we need to look at why does this site exist, and then leave those people alone. If you think that there's a problem with culture, you may not be right. I read a heartwarming account of a couple who had intimacy issues related to medical conditions, and so they had an open relationship because of this. People just have needs, right? And loved ones understand that sometimes. Everyone's relationship is different. But basically, you know, this I don't know if it was a man or a woman or whoever it was in the relationship, but they would go through heinous STD tests as a result of it. Like, one before, they have to have certified results from the other member, and then they both get STD tested during and after, and 70 times, and it's kind of nuts.
I hope they're not getting tested during. But.
And now, you know, they're talking about, well, now I may not be able to have a job, or, you know, I may be at risk for persecution or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that we have so many assumptions, and since we're such a global economy now, you have to just, everyone is different. There are as many different people as there are people.
Right. But I've heard arguments on the other side, you know, that Ashley Madison was itself kind of an organization that enslaved its customers. And those types of things. So I still feel like people are just, society is obsessed with transparency for a lot of different reasons, and I don't know. And
judgment is one of them.
Judgment is certainly one of them, yes. Yes, I mean, that we saw that for sure, people going crazy on the judgment side of things. But at the same time, behind it is this desire to out everything. And I don't know if we can stop it, and there's good and bad aspects of that.
And then you get problems where people go on shooting rampages. I won't even say names or locations or anything. And they're tweeting it. They're live tweeting it. And people see that, and then you see them retweet it. And then the earth just shatters.
To your point, Mark, right? I don't think we can stop it, but I definitely think that there is a social, that we need to instill a social sense of responsibility in accepting diversity and understanding what that means, right? And embracing pluralism and all of these things, because that is what's going to help people deal with this, right? And stop the automatic judgment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the essence, because the reality is the economy is continuing to become more close-knit as a global economy, as is every other aspect of our lives.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I agree. That's
Okay, so I do want to get back to ITSM for a moment.
Oh, all right.
Someone just sent it to me, and I hadn't actually seen it yet. Shame on me for not paying attention because it was released in August. But Gartner actually has a new Magic Quadrant out, and they just sent it to me. And it's actually kind of interesting. I'm trying to post it on our Slack, which, related, I did figure out how to share our show notes via Slack. So we need to change our internal process to only share things that we want show notes in a specific channel. So that's something we need to change. And then I need to send a link to it on our WordPress site. So hold me to that. Keep me honest. But I just posted a picture on our Slack channel of the Magic Quadrant in case you want to see it.
Is this for ITSSSSM or something else?
Yes, it is the double SM.
Okay. And so, what do you find?
Landesk, which was the one that I really was concerned about because of our beloved Hooper. We can actually talk about him since he's not here. We can talk about his company too, all we want. But they're high on the visionary, but low on the ability to execute.
I wonder if that's better or worse than last year or last time.
Yeah, hard to say. Only 2 contenders for leaders. BMC seen as more of a visionary and ServiceNow more of an executioner. The thing is does it feel very relevant though?
No.
Because how many service support management tools are there that aren't on this quadrant now?
Has Front Range hit rock bottom yet?
No, but our friends at Hornbill are not looking so hot down there.
Oh.
Yeah, Hornbill's ready to fall right off.
What about Sharewell?
Sharewell.
Still there, but it's
not as visionary.
Yeah, it's executing. I think they're probably what they're doing is kind of on the tails of ServiceNow in a sense of kind of a little bit speed to market.
Yeah.
Simplicity is what they're probably getting those extra points on.
Huh. Interesting. So I titled this, on a related note, I titled this podcast, ITIL is Dead, Long Live ITIL. And the reason is specifically, there's a great post out there called Why I Hate ITIL. It's by a former consultant out in the UK. If you haven't seen it, just look for etherealmind.com. And I think it's actually, the reason that I'm sharing it specifically is because a lot of practitioners shared this as well. So it must resound with some other people. And it kind of comes to the same conclusion that we reached last week, which is why I like it so much. He talks basically about how the programs to implement service management or ITIL framework or whatever you want to call it are heavily managed, very expensive, very heavy. And I think that's actually indicative of the market, not necessarily ITIL specifically. Discuss. Talk amongst yourselves.
So, I mean, I did read his article, and there was definitely some points that I completely agreed with. But I kind of like to take it to where you took it, right? Which was, it's not just ITIL. We can't just point at any single framework, because his examples are just someone taking that framework and applying it literally and saying, thou must be, I think he even used the word compliant. So that in itself, you know, implies that, was the husband.
I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize, Graham.
Sorry. Hello.
So that in itself, right, to me is where companies are getting caught. The reality is that we have a need to have speed, right, to compete in the market. We also have a significant need for stability, and that can be a paradox, right? But to balance both is essential to survive. And I don't think that ITIL is to be blamed or is dead for that. I think it has a fair space, as does DevOps or any other framework, non-framework you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, use what works and what doesn't. There are certain aspects of it that I think will never die. Like you think about things like service request, asset management, and CI, and discovery, and now any automation platforms that are a result of this speed to innovation, whether it be Chef, Puppet, Ansible, your cloud platform.
I would guess, though, that I mean, most of the people I've talked to who say those types of things, that some organizations who aren't, heavily ITSM focused are more, naturally more creative and innovative and doing better things or delivering better, and those that are heavily focused on control are not. I mean, they're often comparing two different industries even. I mean, if you're in a hospital, you have to manage change no matter what. There is no, like, startup style. Yeah. I mean, so you can't compare some startup company to a hospital and say the hospital has ITSM, so they're not innovative. You just can't.
Well, then there's hardly any value in doing so. I always look at it like you need to innovate in sections, teams. Like I saw it at a medical device manufacturer I worked for in the past, where IT had a function. And some of those functions led over into the business sometimes, like our websites and some e-commerce stuff and hospital billing stuff and insurance stuff. But then there was this other part of IT that was like in clinical. Like they were the ones in the business that were also part of IT. And I think what we're seeing is a gap where IT should have built this separate function to innovate. Innovation Center or R&D or whatever you want to call it. They should have offered this as something to the business. And you revisit it. Is this something that you're interested in? Or you align it to a company objective. If you know your actual goal, is it to innovate? Is it to change? Are you trying to leverage technology in your innovation? Or are you trying to just change people's lives? What sort of investments are you making?
Yeah.
Yeah, Emily is a great example of that, right, Mark? And I think maybe it's not as I guess, called out, but you have the healthcare side, you have research side, right? The research is where the professors and the researchers are all looking to innovate, to find innovative solutions and cures and things like that. They get grant money to do that. But I don't know that we have a necessarily IT function that's geared towards how can we support you or enable you in innovating and finding that next cure, right?
Yeah. And if you expect the operational people to innovate and not be managed by control, of change and stuff like that, then you're going to be frustrated. It has to come from another group that isn't concerned with the same things.
Yeah, or distracted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about, how many people or roles can you fit into those objectives?
So like a charter or a Comcast, rather, might have an innovation set, and be large enough and have the resources to dedicate a whole innovation center. But I think that's why I think ITIL, or any framework really that helps you establish a strong foundation, helps you, the stronger your foundation and your run to businesses, the more time you're opening up for folks to be able to innovate. And that's kind of how I see it, especially for smaller organizations. And that to me is kind of a motivator, right? If I can get my operations in order, whether it's to leverage cloud services, whether it's to, do whatever it is internally and become extremely efficient in how I manage I've now freed up time, right? So leveraging requests, leveraging automation. These are examples of things that if we can get, done and over with, I've now freed up my resources to be more creative.
Yeah.
Yes, it's sort of like you're both in the same business, let's say, but IT needs to. There are some foundational elements we need to lay for both teams to work, especially in concert.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
or perhaps a step forward is when you can automate ITSM, right? When
yes.
Not automate infrastructure or backend, but literally automate change management and incident management. If you can have that happening flawlessly by systems where humans just kind of follow that path without feeling the control, really, it's just the way the system's designed, then they can focus on innovation and not feel held down.
Absolutely. We need more Betty Crocker recipes for chocolate cake out of our changes, right?
Okay.
I think they call it pair programming. You know, like that's one of the ways. If someone is doing it with you all the time and you're both accountable, won't you like check each other's blind spots? And that like goes back to just building a good team. So a lot of these concepts that we talk about, these four. What did you say?
Go back to the people. Just hit it.
Yeah. It's always the people. It really is. But and so these four thinking concepts, a lot of these, what we're talking about, innovation center, DevOps, or agile, or pair programming, even requires culture shift, and it requires that you think about that stuff, and it requires expertise, people who have experience and can be trusted to deliver on that experience. Boom!
There's a great scene in the movie Ex Machina, or however you say it.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. And the scene is where so the new guy goes into the house and he's given a badge, and the guy who owns the house tells him, "This will work everywhere that's meant for you to go. You can try any door. If it doesn't open, it's not meant for you. If it does, it's yours." And so that's perfect change control right there, where it's systems-based. It doesn't feel oppressive. It's just you can literally throw as much change at the environment as you want, and it will block you if you can't do it, and it will allow you if you can.
Huh. Yeah. So when I'm reading about continuous delivery and how you're doing iterative releases, say one a day, you're doing a change a day. If you're able to do that, if you like, let's say for example that your change process requires you to do one change a week. That is how fast you can fix the mistake you made last week. And maybe you can only do that. You can't actually add innovative content to that change because you're only fixing what you broke or someone broke last week. But if you do a release every day, then you're able to fix what you did yesterday, and then as soon as you did that, you can go on to the next thing and you can innovate. The problem is that people oftentimes think that the same number of resources can deliver the same amount of change in a day that they can in a week. Boom, number 2. So hire good people. What's interesting is actually just to watch what people are hiring these days. We talked about it a little bit last week, but if you're in sales or you're in process consulting, you probably want to be studying a lot of different things right now. So just take that, be that your advice as it is, and don't forget that you always have to be able to hack business technology. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.